After the first two races of 2023, Red Bull looks near unstoppable. But how did the team get to where they are today? Join me as we explore the origins and history of the Red Bull Formula One team. The team in 2023, known as Oracle Red Bull Racing, had its beginning as an F1 racing team in 2005. But the Red Bull logo and sponsor entered Formula One 10 years earlier, in 1995, for Sauber. That was the work of Dietrich Mateschitz, who bought 60% of the team, and Sauber drove with Red Bull as their main sponsor. The sponsorship lasted up until 2001, when there was a disagreement on the signing of Kimi Räikkönen instead of Red Bull's pick, Enrique Bernaldi, to race for Sauber. In another storyline that would later intertwine with the Red Bull team, Ford bought Jackie Stewart's Formula One team in 1999 as a marketing strategy to put a spotlight on their luxury vehicle brand, Jaguar. Ironically, they used Ford Cosworth engines and no actual Jaguar engineering on the car. Needless to say, the team did not fare well, and in 2004, Mateschitz swept in and bought the team from Ford. Mateschitz got a little-known retired racing driver, Christian Horner, as the team principal at only 32 years old, 8 weeks before the season opener. Another pivotal character joined the team in late 2005, and if you've seen my video about the McLaren Formula One team, you might already know him a bit. His name is adriannewy. The RB1 made its debut in Australia in 2005, equipped with the same Cosworth engines used by Jaguar. Former McLaren driver David Coulthard drove alongside Christian Klein and Liuzzi. Overall, it was a successful first season, outscoring the former Jaguar team's points in 2003 and 2004 combined. They finished 7th in the Constructors that year, closely behind BAR Honda. In 2006, the team switched engine suppliers to Ferrari, but would experience a slightly poorer season than last year. Despite this, Coulthard would score the team's first podium, a 3rd place in Monaco, the team finishing 7th in the Constructors yet again. The team switched engine suppliers for the second time and opted for Renault for the 2007 season. Remember adriannewy was signed in late 2005? Well, his touch on the cars during the 2005 and 2006 season was minimal. It was not until the RB3 in 2007 where he could make an actual impact. But, like the powerful McLarens he'd designed before, the cars were performing at a high level when they did not break down. And unfortunately, retirement became the norm for Coulthard and the newly signed Australian driver Markwebber. Each of them retiring from 7 out of the 17 races. Despite this, they finished 5th in the Constructors, 2 steps up from last year. 2008 was a setback for Red Bull, with their sister team, the Ferrari-powered Toro Rosso, outscoring them on multiple occasions, even finishing ahead of them in the Constructors' Championship by 10 points. Red Bull dropping down from 5th back to 7th. The RB5 was driven by Red Bull's wonderchild Sebastian Vettel, who replaced Coulthard for the 2009 season. Vettel would drive alongside Webber. This driver pairing would prove to be a tumultuous one. 2009 would be a huge improvement for the team, with them scoring their first win, pole, and 1-2 during the 3rd round in China, Vettel claiming both pole and victory. In 2009, the Brawn team would dominate the first half of the season, with Red Bull really picking up speed towards the latter half. Vettel came an impressive 2nd in the driver's standings, and the team would see an exponential change in the Constructors' Championship, going from 7th to 2nd in the span of a year. Vettel started off strong at the season opener of the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix, taking pole and leading the race comfortably until a problem with the spark plug occurred, and he dropped down to 4th. The RB16 was incredibly fast over 1 lap, and would see them taking pole in 15 out of the 19 races that season, 10 to Vettel and 5 to Webber, harkening back to the early 2000s and Newy's McLaren cars. With the car consistently fighting for podiums and wins, tension would inevitably rise between the drivers, and at the Turkish Grand Prix, the two of them collided on lap 40, which forced Vettel out of the race and Webber finishing 3rd. During the penultimate round in Brazil, the team won the constructors for the first time as McLaren could not surpass them in points. Vettel took the title by 4 points to Ferrari's Fernando Alonso at the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi. The RB7 and Vettel were in another league during the 2011 season. 11 wins, 5 second places, and never finishing lower than 4th, which he only did once, except for one DNF in Abu Dhabi due to an unexplained puncture during the first lap. Vettel was virtually unstoppable, winning the championship with 122 points ahead of number 2 in the driver's standings, Jenson Button. Vettel also broke Mansell's 14 pole record set in 1992, scoring 15 poles through the 19-race season. They wrapped up both the drivers' and constructors' title with 3 races to go. 2012 is widely agreed to be one of the best seasons in Formula One history. There were no clear championship contenders until round 8 in Valencia. With the first 7 races being won by 7 different drivers, the championship remained relatively open. Alonso and Vettel would again fight until the last race to see who would come out on top. Both would have their fair share of accidents and bad luck, but when they entered the last race in Brazil, Vettel had a 13-point lead over Alonso. Vettel won the championship from 6th place, becoming the youngest ever triple world champion, only 3 points ahead of Alonso. Nissan's premium brand, Infiniti, became the team's main sponsor in 2013, with the team changing its name to Infiniti Red Bull Racing. The RB9 in the hands of Vettel was ridiculously strong, retiring only once during the British Grand Prix after a gearbox issue where he was leading the race. He finished on the podium in every race except the 1 DNF and 2 4th-place finishes, taking 13 wins and 1 unbroken record with 9 consecutive wins during the second half of the season, and 1 slightly controversial win in Malaysia. This would end up being his teammate Mark Webber's last season for the team, having been outscored by his teammate by 198 points at the end of the season. The 2014 season came with vast new technical regulations, and we all know who dominated most of that era. As I said, Webber left at the end of 2013, and another Australian driver, Daniel Ricciardo, took his place. During testing, it was prevalent that the Renault engines were underperforming compared to their Mercedes and Ferrari power units. Vettel would not win a single race this season, but Ricciardo took 3 victories. Due to consistent point scorings for Vettel and Ricciardo, Red Bull came second in the Constructors' Championship behind the dominant Mercedes, and Ricciardo finished an impressive 3rd in the championship, being the only non-Mercedes driver to win a race that whole season. Red Bull champion Vettel leaves for Ferrari in 2015. In that vacuum, Red Bull signs Russian Daniil Kvyat to take his place. The Renault engines would prove unreliable and underpowered during the 2015 season, and the team would only claim 3 podiums and no victories. They finished 4th in the constructors behind Williams. Infiniti left as a sponsor after the team's falling out with Renault. A few weeks before the season opener in 2016, Red Bull announced their new technical partnership with Aston Martin, but continued with Tag Heuer-badged Renault engines. Round 5 in Spain, and Kvyat was replaced with Red Bull protégé Max Verstappen, who had previously raced for their sister team, Scuderia Toro Rosso. After a collision between the 2 silver arrows of Mercedes in Spain, Verstappen would take his maiden Grand Prix victory for Red Bull at only 18 years old, the youngest ever Formula One Grand Prix winner to date. 2016 was a huge improvement for the team, with a ruthless and aggressive Verstappen pushing Ricciardo to perform at a very high level. The 2 Red Bull drivers would be the only non-Mercedes drivers to win a race throughout the season, Ricciardo finishing in 3rd place and Verstappen in 5th place in the driver's standings. Red Bull became best of the rest, with 2nd place in the constructors, only behind Mercedes. Going back and forth between engine reliability, the 2017 season was a step down from 2016. Ferrari had a resurgence and almost challenged Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton for the title. Ricciardo and Verstappen continuing to pull the most out of the RB13, despite its unreliability. Between the two of them, they scored 13 podiums and 3 wins, but landed in 3rd place in the constructors behind Ferrari. Aston Martin became the team's title sponsor in 2018, and their tumultuous relationship with Renault would come to an end at the end of the season. Ricciardo would take 2 victories, and Verstappen 2 victories and an impressive 11 podiums. Verstappen finished in 4th place in the driver's standings, and Red Bull came 3rd again to Ferrari. Ricciardo would leave the team at the end of the season to drive for their rival, Renault. After finishing their 12-year partnership with Renault, Red Bull partnered with Honda for engines in 2019. Something McLaren previously had poor luck with, as you may know if you've seen my McLaren video. Playing musical chairs with Ricciardo's replacement, Pierre Gasly, the team opted mid-season for rookie Alexander Albon to race opposite Verstappen. Overall, it was a successful season, with Max winning 3 races and scoring 9 podiums, ending up 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, and yet again 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. 2020 and Mercedes still dominates. That does not deter Verstappen from keeping up his momentum and claiming 2 victories and 11 podiums, finishing 109 points ahead of teammate Albon, securing 3rd place in the driver's standings, ending the season with a pole and victory in Abu Dhabi. My heart kind of stops when I think about the 2021 season. After 7 years of complete Mercedes dominance, finally, another team could properly challenge the Silver Arrows. 2021 brought a title fight that would rival that of Senna and Prost during the mid to late 80s and early 90s. As fans of the sport, we could not ask for more. The 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, on the brink of becoming the Formula One driver with the most championships in history, and the young, determined Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, looking to make his dreams come true and become a world champion for the first time. Red Bull replaced their second driver yet again, and this time they picked someone outside of the Red Bull Junior program. The experienced, newly race-winning driver Sergio Checo Perez would replace Albon. At the season opener in Bahrain, Verstappen took pole, but Hamilton won. Round 2 at Imola, Hamilton took pole, but Verstappen won. This game of 1 and 2 would keep steady throughout the season. We were all wondering when the two would inevitably collide. Round 11, and the British Grand Prix saw a controversial first lap, with Verstappen and Hamilton fighting side by side for half a lap, coming full speed around one of the fastest corners on the F1 calendar, Copse. Hamilton and Verstappen collided. It is still an ongoing debate who was at fault for the crash. All I can say is that Verstappen was ahead and heading for the apex, and Hamilton did not back down. Verstappen would then, at a speed of approximately 290 kilometers an hour, slam into the barrier with an estimated 51 G. Hamilton received only a 10-second penalty, which he served, and still won the race, whilst Verstappen was in hospital. The two would collide once again during the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, where an angry Verstappen ended up with his car on top of Hamilton's Mercedes, taking them both out of the race, which without the halo could have ended fatally. Hamilton and Verstappen would continue their rivalry down to the very last race in Abu Dhabi, going into the Grand Prix equal on points, 369.5 points each. Hamilton controlled the race up until the last 7 laps, when Williams' Nicholas Latifi crashed and brought out the safety car. A lot has been said about how race leader Michael Masi handled the situation, bending the rules to make the last race as spectacular as the rest of the season had been. But on the last lap of the final race of the season, Hamilton and Verstappen fought it out for one nail-biting final time. Verstappen took the checkered flag, winning the race and his first championship, and Red Bull's first championship since Vettel in 2013, almost a decade later. Red Bull came second in the constructors' standings to Mercedes, but remained the only team in 8 years to beat Mercedes in the Drivers' Championship. The new regulations that had been postponed due to the pandemic took effect in 2022, with no real way of knowing who would end up on top in this new era. The new regulations focused on underneath the car and to reduce dirty air. Red Bull's chief technical officer, adriannewy, developed the RB18, and together with McLaren's MP44, is one of the most dominant F1 cars in history. Oracle became the team's main sponsor, and the team was renamed Oracle Red Bull Racing for the 2022 season. After the first race in Bahrain, Ferrari looked to be the favorite for the championship, at the helm of Charles Leclerc. Verstappen DNF'd, as well as teammate Sergio Perez, that opening race. So Red Bull had 0 points after the first round, and championship leader Leclerc was 26 points ahead. Verstappen had some bad luck throughout the season, but even with that, he delivered every single time. Most notably, during the Belgium Grand Prix at Spa, where, due to switching power units, he had a grid penalty that would drag him down from 1st to 14th in qualifying. But Verstappen, being Verstappen, he drove a superb, flawless race and finished 1st, from 14th. Norwegian commentators comparing it to stealing candy from little children. Ferrari's blunders and head-scratching strategies ultimately crushed any chance of a championship fight. And Verstappen took the title with 4 races to go, and an albeit confusing announcement and celebration at the Japanese Grand Prix. Verstappen won 15 races and took 17 podiums, finishing on 454 points, to next man, Leclerc, 308 points. Red Bull claimed both the constructors' and drivers' title in 2022, but was fined $7 million for a disagreement over the financial paperwork handed in at the end of the season. This resulted in the team having a huge reduction in wind tunnel testing ahead of the 2023 season. And as of late March 2023, that's all I have. This season, it seems that Red Bull again had the upper hand, but who knows how things will play out. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know which team you want to learn about next. Until next time, later.